2,600 years before the birth of Christ, a man was executed on the banks of the Nile. He was not a criminal. He was not a traitor. He was an architect, and his only crime was failing to deliver the impossible on time. That execution changed everything. It sent a message that echoed across every quarry, every ramp, every scaffold in Egypt. The Pharaoh was not building a tomb, he was building eternity, and anyone who stood between him and that eternity would be buried beneath the very stone they failed to move. Most people think the Great Pyramid of Giza is a marvel of ancient engineering. They are wrong. It is a monument to obsession, to catastrophic ambition, and to thousands of lives consumed by one man's refusal to accept the limits of his world. This is the history they never teach you. This is the story the stones have never stopped screaming. The year is approximately 2560 BCE. The Pharaoh Khufu has been on the throne for less than 3 years. He is young, he is impatient, and he has already decided that no structure ever built by human hands will compare to what he is about to demand. Before a single block was quarried, before a single ramp was packed with mud and limestone dust, Khufu faced a problem that no engineer in history had ever solved. He wanted his tomb to reach 146 meters into the sky. He wanted it to cover over 5 hectares of desert floor, and he wanted it finished within his lifetime. No one told him it was impossible. No one dared. His chief architect, a man named Hemiunu, was handed a task that would have broken lesser minds. 2.3 million stone blocks, each one averaging 2.5 tons, some weighing as much as 80 tons. All of them to be quarried, transported, shaped, lifted and placed with a precision that modern engineers still struggle to explain. Hemiunu did not sleep for 3 years. History does not record what he dreamed when he finally did. To understand the scale of what Khufu was demanding, consider this. The Great Pyramid remained the tallest structure on Earth for 3,800 years. No cathedral, no tower, no monument built by any civilization anywhere on the planet surpassed it until the 19th century. 3,800 years. That is not a record. That is a statement about the nature of human ambition that has never been repeated. And yet Khufu was not satisfied with simply building tall. He demanded precision that borders on the supernatural. The base of the Great Pyramid is level to within 2.1 centimeters across its entire 230-meter length. The 4 sides are aligned to the cardinal points of the compass, with an accuracy of less than 0.04 of a degree. These tolerances were achieved without laser instruments, without GPS, without any technology that we would recognize today. They were achieved with wooden rods, stretched string, water levels carved from stone, and a workforce that numbered in the tens of thousands. How? That question has driven archaeologists to the edge of obsession for 2 centuries, and the honest answer is that we still do not fully know. Here is what most people never consider. The Great Pyramid was not built by slaves. That myth was invented by Herodotus, a Greek historian who visited Egypt 2,000 years after the pyramid was finished and asked the locals what happened. The real workforce was something far more disturbing than slavery. It was voluntary, it was organized, and it consumed entire generations of Egyptian families who believed, with absolute conviction, that building this monument would secure their place in the afterlife. Workers came from every corner of Egypt. They were divided into gangs with names like Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkaure. They were fed beef and fish and bread in quantities that rivaled the diet of the pharaoh's own court. They were given medical care when they were injured. They were buried with honor when they died, and they died constantly. Bone analysis of skeletons found near the pyramid site tells a story of extraordinary physical trauma. Compressed spines, shattered knees, crushed hands. These were not men who were whipped into labor. These were men who worked themselves apart, piece by piece, because they believed in something larger than their own bodies. That belief was the true engine of the Great Pyramid. Not ramps, not sledges, not copper chisels. Faith. The worker village discovered by archaeologists in the 1990s revealed something that rewrote everything historians thought they understood about ancient Egypt. This was not a temporary camp. It was a permanent city, It had bakeries large enough to feed thousands of people every single day. It had breweries producing industrial quantities of beer, which was the primary caloric supplement for heavy laborers in the ancient world. It had administrative buildings where scribes tracked every worker, every block, every tool, and every ration with a bureaucratic precision that would not have been out of place in a modern construction firm. Someone had thought about this very carefully. Someone had calculated exactly how many calories 23,000 workers needed to move 2.3 million blocks in 20 years. Someone had designed a supply chain stretching across the entire country. And that someone was not Khufu. Khufu had the vision. It was his administrators, his engineers, his scribes, and his foremen who turned that vision into logistics. Their names are mostly lost to history. Their achievement is not. But faith alone does not move 80-ton blocks of granite from a quarry in Aswan 800 kilometers away. And this is where the story becomes something extraordinary. The granite for the king's chamber deep inside the pyramid was not local. It came from the south. It was floated down the Nile on wooden barges during the annual flood season, when the river expanded wide enough to carry stones the size of small houses. The logistics of this operation required a fleet of at least 40 large barges working simultaneously for multiple consecutive flood seasons. The organizational structure needed to coordinate this was more complex than any military campaign Egypt had ever attempted. Think about what it meant to move a single granite block weighing 60 tons down a river that flooded unpredictably, on a wooden barge that had to be carefully ballasted to avoid capsizing, through a landscape with no mechanical cranes, no steel cables, and no margin for error. One barge lost to a flood surge or a navigational mistake meant months of work destroyed in seconds. The records suggest this happened. The records do not say how the men responsible were punished. And then there were the local limestone blocks, quarried from the plateau itself, just south of the construction site. Workers used copper chisels and wooden wedges soaked in water to split the stone. The wedges expanded as they absorbed moisture, cracking the rock along natural fault lines. It sounds simple. It was not. A single mistake in the angle of a wedge could shatter a block that had taken 3 days to free from the bedrock. Entire quarry gangs were reassigned or punished for a single cracked stone. The ramps. Every school textbook mentions the ramps. What every school textbook fails to mention is that no one has ever found definitive evidence of exactly what those ramps looked like. Archaeologists have proposed at least 7 different ramp configurations over the past century. A single straight ramp long enough to reach the pyramid's peak would have required more material to build than the pyramid itself. A spiraling ramp wrapping around the outside would have made it impossible to check the corner angles during construction. The solution Hemiunu used remains, to this day, one of the great unsolved mysteries of ancient engineering. In 2018, a team of French archaeologists working at a site called Hatnub in the eastern desert discovered a ramp system unlike anything previously documented. It was steep, far steeper than conventional theory allowed, and it used a system of wooden posts and ropes that allowed workers to haul massive blocks up near vertical inclines, using a fraction of the manpower previously assumed necessary. This discovery did not solve the mystery of the Great Pyramid's construction. It made the mystery deeper. Because if a ramp this steep could work, then everything calculated about the logistics of pyramid construction for the past 200 years needs to be recalculated. What we do know is that as the pyramid rose higher, the problems grew worse. At lower levels, hundreds of workers could push and pull simultaneously. By the time the construction reached the upper third of the structure, the working surface had shrunk dramatically. There was no longer room for large gangs. The blocks still needed to be placed with tolerances of less than 2 millimeters. The men doing this work were operating at heights that would terrify a modern construction worker with a full safety harness. These men had nothing but their own balance and the belief that Khufu's gods were watching. Accidents were not recorded. Deaths were not announced. Work continued. In 2017, a team of international physicists aimed muon detectors at the Great Pyramid and discovered something that stopped the entire archaeological world cold. There is a void inside the pyramid, a large one, approximately 30 meters long, located above the Grand Gallery. It does not correspond to any known chamber. It does not appear on any ancient document. It has never been opened. and no one knows what is inside it. This was not a minor discovery. This was the equivalent of finding an unknown room inside the most analyzed structure in human history. After 4,500 years of examination, measurement, excavation, and speculation, the pyramid had been hiding something, and it is still hiding it today. Who put it there? Why? Was it a structural feature, deliberately designed to reduce the weight bearing down on the grand gallery below? Was it an abandoned chamber, planned for a purpose that changed midway through construction? Or was it something else entirely? Something that Khufu's architects understood about the nature of stone and pressure and time that modern engineers are only beginning to rediscover. Here is what makes this discovery even more unsettling. The pyramid has been studied intensively since the time of Napoleon, who sent scholars and surveyors to measure every surface and every passage. It was mapped by the British in the 19th century. It was scanned and probed throughout the 20th century. For 200 years of modern scientific examination, this void remained invisible, hidden in plain sight inside the most famous structure on Earth. There is another secret hidden inside the pyramid that almost no one talks about. The King's Chamber, the room where Khufu's sarcophagus was placed, is built from red granite blocks weighing up to 70 tons each. Above that chamber, engineers constructed 5 separate relieving chambers, one stacked on top of another, designed to distribute the immense weight of the pyramid pressing down from above. The uppermost of those chambers has a pointed ceiling, formed by 2 massive granite slabs leaning against each other like a primitive arch. That ceiling has been cracked for a very long time, probably since an earthquake struck the region in antiquity. The cracks run deep. They are still there today. Every engineer who has examined them has said the same thing quietly without wanting to cause alarm. The King's Chamber is under stress, significant stress. The relieving chambers are doing their job, but only barely. The question of how long they will continue to do so is one that Egyptian authorities do not publicly discuss. The pyramid was not finished when Khufu died. Most historians believe the final casing stones, the brilliant white Tura limestone that once made the pyramid shine like polished silver in the desert sun, were still being placed when the pharaoh's body was carried to its burial chamber. Work continued under his successor. The capstone, if it ever existed, may have been placed years after the man who ordered it was already sealed inside. And then the white casing was gone. Not in one catastrophic event, but slowly, deliberately, across centuries. Medieval builders needed stone. The Great Pyramid was the largest quarry in Egypt. They stripped it systematically, working from the top down, pulling away the polished limestone and carting it to the growing city of Cairo. What tourists see today, the stepped, rough, brownish surface, is not the pyramid Khufu built. It is the interior of his pyramid, exposed to the sky for the first time in 4,000 years by the very civilization that claimed to revere his legacy. Khufu never knew his monument would be dismantled by people who had forgotten his name. But the truly hidden history of the Great Pyramid is not in its construction or its dimensions or its undiscovered chambers. It is in the people who built it and what building it cost them. Archaeologists excavating the worker village near Giza found evidence of a medical facility, a sophisticated one. Workers with amputated limbs showed bone regrowth, meaning they survived their amputations and continued living, and possibly working for years afterward. The surgical skill required to perform a field amputation 4,500 years ago and have the patient survive is not what most people associate with ancient Egypt. They also found the oldest known example of a workers' compensation system. Records on papyrus describe rations and care provided to workers who were injured or too ill to continue. The state did not simply discard the men whose bodies wore out in its service. It fed them, it housed them, it acknowledged in writing that their sacrifice had value. This does not make the pyramid a monument to human kindness. It makes it something more complicated, more honest. The Great Pyramid is a monument to what human beings will endure and what they will willingly demand of each other when they believe the cause is large enough. 23,000 workers at peak construction, 20 years of continuous labor, 2.3 million blocks placed with a precision that took modern engineers decades to fully measure. And somewhere inside, behind sealed passages and 4,500 years of silence, a chamber that no living human being has ever entered. There is one final mystery that deserves to be spoken aloud. The sarcophagus found inside the king's chamber was empty when explorers first reached it in the 9th century. Khufu's mummy has never been found. His burial equipment has never been found. His canopic jars, which would have contained his preserved organs, have never been found. The most famous tomb in human history contains no body, no treasure, and no explanation for where any of it went. Was the pyramid robbed in antiquity? Almost certainly. Was it robbed before it was even sealed? Some historians believe so. There are passages inside the pyramid that show evidence of hasty modification, as if plans changed suddenly during construction, as if someone decided at the last moment that the obvious tomb was too obvious, that the real burial was somewhere else entirely. Where is Khufu? After 4,500 years, no one knows. Most of us will never stand at the base of the Great Pyramid. Most of us will never look up along those massive limestone steps and feel the full weight of what was accomplished there. But the stones remember. They remember every hand that shaped them, every back that carried them, every life that was spent, willingly or not, in service of one man's refusal to disappear from the world. Khufu is gone. The workers who built his pyramid are gone. The white casing that made it shine is gone. The name of the architect who designed it survived only because his statue was found in a pit near the pyramid, almost by accident, in 1910. But the pyramid is still there. 4,500 years of earthquakes, invasions, floods, and the slow grinding erosion of time, and it is still there. That is not engineering. That is not ambition. That is something that has no name in any language. It is simply the Great Pyramid of Giza, and it is not finished telling us what it knows.